Hey, good morning, everybody. Robert Phoenix here. Getting a little audio bleed through the last few notes of Cowboy Song by Thin Lizzy, one of my favorite bands of all time. Rock on, Phil the Knot, wherever you are. Hey, good morning. It is the 12th, looks like. The 12th of February, and have an interesting little show here lined up for you today. Kind of a recap of what happened in New Hampshire last night with some interesting information, blowback, feedback, all that stuff, and a few other things, just some Corona updates as usual, because we seem to be in this thing. And what I'm looking into right now as an interesting kind of remedy, perhaps, for Corona and some other modern plagues and diseases. So it's really interesting. I've been thinking about the word "so" a lot, because when I do this, right, 5 days a week, and so I listen to myself sometimes, not all the time, but I do. I have to do my kind of critique with how I deliver the message, what it sounds like, if it's articulate, if I'm repeating words, where does my language get lazy, things like that. And one of the things that I noticed was the inclusion of the word "so." And I almost did it there. Right? So is an interesting word. And so there I am again. I've been listening to and watching other people who are in the media and who do talk shows and streams, podcasts. And "so" is one of those words that is used quite often. It's probably one of the most used words that goes under the radar. So. The other word that connects is "and so," which gets you to the next thought. And so there I am again. I've been conscious of this word "so." As you sow, so shall you reap, right? Anyway, it's just a little exercise that goes on between my ears as I try to clean up, right? It's the Virgo trip. I got to clean it up, clean this thing up so it's as streamlined as possible. Streamlined as possible. We had a wicked storm. We had a wicked storm here last night. It was thunder and lightning and 25-mile-per-hour winds and heavy rain and below 40, and it's going to be up to about 70 degrees today. Oh, look who's here. Speaking of storm, the storm has arrived. The storm is upon us. I have to prep. Whenever I see the storm enter the room, I have to prep the space. You know why? Because it's about to go down. There he is. Jasper, you're a little late today, buddy. He had to get up off the bed from hanging out with Rosie. This is a big commitment today. Really big commitment. Got a nice warm blankie. He's got his nice warm girlfriend who likes to lick him and take care of him. So this is a commitment you're seeing here with Jasper. Real commitment. And just so you know, you folks who have contributed so nicely and kindly to the subscription fund, thank you. Appreciate it. And some of that actually winds up going to Jasper as part of his pay. Of course, I pay him in cat food and the occasional treat. So just know that he's not being left out of the subscription equation. Let me jump in and let's see who's in chat here. Let's see, what do we got? We have Judy. Hi, Judy. And 10 Dragon, what's happening? There's Ian and Fup. Good morning. There's Paula. Hi, Paula. Nice to see you. There's the man, Uncle Glenn. Blow it out on the trail. Yeah, that's right, man. Cowboy Song. I love Thin Lizzy's Whiskey. Whiskey in the Jar was the track that launched Thin Lizzy. That was the thing, that they were just kind of plodding around and trying to figure out what they were all about. Whiskey in a Jar launched them to the top of the charts in Ireland and then later in England. Great song. Morning, Joni. There's Maury and Sandra. Hi, Sandra. Good to see you. There's Tamara. Hi, Tamara. There's Joe and Miranda. Diana. Let's see. Who else is here? There's Ani, the sheriff. Ani, you got the wrench? You got the wrench? Yeah, you got the wrench, Ani. I have to renew the sheriff status. Let's see, what else do we have here? I've seen the SOF phenom. If you watch news back in the Obama, so replaced, basically been on my mind for years. That's interesting, right? The whole so thing. There's Christine. What's going on? What's going on, Christine? The Phoenix Lodge. Oh, there's a lot of connotations there, doesn't it? Let's see, who else do we have? There's Mary. Hi, Mary. And Marie. Hi, Marie. Good to see you. And let's see, anybody else? No wrench on this channel, only 11,000. Okay, you got it on the wrench. You got it there now. Oh, there it is. Yes. Yes, Ani. You are large and in charge here. And I mean large by big personality. Hey, there's Lynette. How's it going? Going to work. Hope the stream doesn't buffer too much. You're down the road. Lynette's a road warrior. Nice to see you. There we go. Ani with a wrench. The wench with a wrench. And so now it begins. The show begins. Interesting night last night in New Hampshire. Bizarre night in New Hampshire. Bizarre experience. The political process is sputtering, grinding, churning, burning, smoking. It's like a very old vehicle that is in need of an update, a warranty, or a completely different vehicle, or so it seems. So I put an or in front of the so this time. By the way, So, a great album by Peter Gabriel, right? That was his really breakthrough album, was So. Red Rain, fantastic. I saw Peter Gabriel in his prime. Let me tell you, one of the best concerts ever. Peter Gabriel, consummate showman, fantastic, incredible, incredible. He did this one song. I've seen Peter Gabriel like 4 times. He did this one song. What is it? It was the song that AT&T used for their commercial, and it's about the phone call, and he sings it with Sinead O'Connor. And when he did it live, Sinead O'Connor was in a phone booth, like a fake phone booth in the audience, or at the end of the stage. It was at the end because the stage went out. So she was there in this phone booth, and Peter Gabriel was having this conversation with her. And they're going back and forth. And as the song continues to progress, the phone booth keeps coming closer and closer to Peter Gabriel until finally they come together, and she's there at the end of the song. Incredible, just incredible, poignant, emotional. You know, I do miss that music. I miss that music. I miss those performances. I miss those artists. They were epic. Glenn Streeter sent me a video last night. Tommy Bolin, who's a great guitar player, Gypsy Soul, and I was listening to some Tommy Bolin this morning as well. Just a phenomenal talent, like incredible talent. You may diss the baby boomers. Like there's a lot of boomer hate going on, but it's undeniable that they made the best fucking rock and roll. I'm sorry, it's just the way it is. They made the best rock and roll, bar none. You know, there's some post boomers that do okay, but it's not the same. And I would say some of the kind of the very late boomers, Generation Jones, Generation Zero, not to be confused with Generation Z, very different generation, which is the punk rock generation of the Clash and Sex Pistols, different kind of rock and roll, but still very, very good stuff. Well, what about New Hampshire? What happened last night? Apparently Bernie Sanders won. Apparently he won, and apparently Mr. Pete Buttigieg finished second. The surprising Amy Klobuchar finished third. Then we have Elizabeth Warren coming in a distant fourth. Then there's Joe Biden, who looks, for all intents and purposes, just done. He's done. The No Malarkey tour has run out of fuel. I'd be very surprised if Biden makes it through the Nevada primary or the caucus, whatever they call them. Nevada, I guess it's a primary. So what do we have? One of the Carolinas is next, and then after that it's Nevada. I'd be very surprised if he lasts that long. Elizabeth Warren is probably running on DNC money right now because Biden has private donors, but she's probably running on DNC money to somehow take some votes away from Bernie Sanders. I'm going to talk about Sanders, and I ran across a very interesting article that I'm going to read. Okay, Jasper finally settled down. He's made sure that he has claimed every single inch of this podium and this computer as his own. He now owns it. I don't own anything. I own nothing. It's all Jasper. I got to turn this down. Give me a second here. One moment. Boom. All right, that's done. Okay. So Biden's done. Yang, he's gone. Interesting story, Andrew Yang, but he's gone. Had some interesting ideas. If a Democrat is elected, I'm sure Andrew Yang might actually have a place somewhere inside of their cabinet. He's gone. No Yang Bang. No Yang Bang this year, or this go round. That leaves our friend Tulsi Gabbard way on the outside looking in. And for all of Tulsi's flaws and all of her Council on Foreign Relations connections and all of her really being a gun grabber in disguise of a proto-libertarian, I still like her the best out of that bunch, and that's not saying a lot. And now Pete Buttigieg is the military candidate because he served. I was watching a video of Buttigieg this morning, and it was surfaced on Breitbart, and he was talking to a group of veterans. That guy is another one of these NLP dudes. I guarantee you that right now. I watched his speech. He must have used the word serve, service, servant as an anchor about 100 times in his speech to these veterans. Anchor, 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 anchor. He speaks 7 languages. I guess he's fluent in NLP as well. He's Obama 2.0. He's backed by the very same people. And there's some there's some thought here that he may not even be human. If you saw Tucker Carlson's rant on Joe Biden, how he's done, he includes Pete Buttigieg, he's like a robot. He's like an AI. He's like AI. He's like AI. His father, of course, very deeply enmeshed in the Communist Party. I've heard that he was actually the head of CPUSA at one point, or at the very least, the head of another subgroup or subcell of CPUSA. So Pete Buttigieg is a red diaper baby. His plan is to populate small American cities with refugees. That's his plan, because they need to grow the populations. Isn't it really interesting how Democrats, and I'll throw Republicans in there too, because they're not doing a whole hell of a lot either. This, of course, is a flashpoint issue. Some of you may get a little queasy or squeamish about this. But Democrats wholeheartedly endorse abortion. So what they want to do is they want to eliminate the population. But then they want to bring new population in. Right? It's like, oh, the numbers are down. Oh, we don't have the numbers. Look at the numbers. Well, the numbers are down is because you're peddling abortion. That's what you're doing, and you're taking a wrecking ball to this idea of the family. But you're more than willing to bring in and support new people coming into the country because they're going to be the magic elixir. It's going to save the day. And of course, they're always pushing. Oh, these people are so good for the economy. We got to have them in for the economy. Why? Why is it going to be good for it's really good for builders? That's a bunch of bullshit. Because all they care about is Agenda 21. They don't care about building. They don't care about single family homes. These people are so disingenuous. Oh, they're good for the economy. They're good for why? Because they're going to get handouts? And they're going to go run around and spend their money at places like Taco Bell or Burger King, wherever the best, deals and friendly diet is that how they're good for the local economy? And I'm not talking about Mexico, by the way. I'm not talking about Mexico. I'm talking about countries besides Mexico or besides Guatemala or besides Costa Rica or besides El Salvador, right? Different. This is different. Are they going to go run down to Home Depot and start buying a bunch of tools? Come into your house and start fixing stuff? Oh, really? I'm sorry. I may come across as a bit of a xenophobe here. I apologize, but I am also very protective. As I, it's an interesting process. As I become more lucid and clear, I become more protective of the people that live here in this place. I don't care what freaking color you are. If you live here, you live here. If you have family here, if you have generations here, I'm protective. I'm protective of this group, which has been undermined again and again and again by these fucking globalists who just outsource everything. And now we're going to see what's going to happen with the dependence on China and the outsourcing. It's going to get ugly. And could it be an opportunity to retrofit the global economy? I guess. I guess. But you never hear Trump talk about this anymore. You never hear him. Right at the beginning, oh, guess what? We've got Train. Train was going to go to Mexico, but now they're not. They're going to stay in Indiana or Ohio or wherever they were going to stay. Oh, and Ford was going to do this. And guess what? Ford's going to stay here now. Oh, isn't that great? SoFi. Oh, man, SoFi is investing in the infrastructure. We're getting jobs back. The companies are coming back. He doesn't talk about this at all now. He's moved on to a global agenda. And of course, he's had to fight off these parasites who have been doing everything in their power to derail him so that they don't have to face him in the next election, even if it is a sham. They want it to be a sham on their terms. You don't hear that anymore. So when I talk about this, I'm being protective of the people of this country, the people that live here. Because you drive around and you see the human detritus and the effects of globalism in the American cities, which are littered with people who have been basically shattered and short shrifted and left behind. And they'll have their own kind of awakening. The homeless are starting to wake up slowly. They're starting to organize. Because that is the nature of people. They wind up organizing. They begin to form tribes, and they have tribal identity and collective. This is the way things are, because you can't go it alone. And that'll be interesting. I think it'd be really interesting if there was a homeless lobby and a homeless coalition. You could organize these people. How dependable they'd be, I don't know. But those are some numbers right there, and they're growing every day. But now they want to bring people in and take whatever handouts, whatever menial jobs are left over, so that the people in this country, get the short end of the stick. And at the end of the day, it doesn't even matter, because AI is going to wind up replacing 80% of these people. Nobody talks about that. Bernie Sanders doesn't touch AI. He doesn't touch automation. All he talks about is corporations how the corporate and the Democrats do not like Bernie Sanders. You know why? Because the Democrats are really, really plutocrats and globalists in disguise. And if Bernie Sanders is going to enact his program, he's going to take their money. Bernie Sanders is going to be all about nationalization, all about nationalization. And do you think that these corporate Democrats who are invested in all these companies where they get kickbacks, where they get really, really good IPOs on their stocks and all the stuff that they've secretly hid from everybody else, just like the Republicans do? I'm not saying that the Republicans don't play the game. Of course they do. But do you think the Democrats are going to like that? Of course they're not. That's why they don't want him. They want a guy like, ultimately, they'll want a guy like Bloomberg because Bloomberg will represent their corporate interests. They're okay with that. They don't want Bernie Sanders. He's a real problem for the Democrats. And when they go into the convention, and I believe it will be a brokered convention, it's going to get ugly. It's going to get very ugly. And you're going to have Elizabeth Warren with her little piddly 9%, whatever delegates have managed to jump on her back. She's going to peddle those, and she'll have some influence. She'll have some influence, which is ridiculous. I want to play you a video. I sourced this last night on Facebook. You got to see this. This is how irrelevant Elizabeth Warren is. Let me show you. You guys are going to get a kick out of this. Here we go. All right, check this out. This is Elizabeth Warren, and she is in a diner in New Hampshire. Watch this. She's irrelevant. She's totally irrelevant. They are totally ignoring her. They are shunning her. They're totally shunning her. Look at this one woman right here. I'll show you. Look at this dude. He's like, he won't even look at her. He won't even look at her. They're just all turning away. They got their heads on their cell phones, not looking, not paying attention. This guy won't even turn around. He's looking at his kid. She's irrelevant. She's irrelevant. And yet, whatever kind of piddly votes or delegates she's managing to soak up, she'll peddle. She'll peddle at the convention. And she'll peddle for position. She'll peddle for power. She may even peddle for whoever is going to be in or theoretically in to get a position inside of their cabinet. That's exactly what she's doing. This is really, again, the skeleton of the system is revealing itself. The rotting skeleton of the system is being so transparent right now for everyone to see. It's all there. It's a laughingstock. It's a total laughingstock. Bernie Sanders not only represents a challenge and a dilemma for Democrats, he also represents a challenge and a dilemma for Israel. And I found this article, which is very, very interesting. And this gives you some ideas and some thoughts around Bernie Sanders and how Israel views an American liberal Bolshevik Jew. Okay, This is how they view Bernie Sanders, and the kind of skepticism, doubt, and trepidation they have around a guy whose party is beginning to build an anti-Israeli sentiment. If you look at people like Tlaib and AOC, there's this movement for BDS. They're pro-Palestinian. And Bernie's going to have a dilemma on his hands if he's elected president, and so will the Israelis. Let me read this article to you. They don't trust him because they don't think he is Jewish enough. All right, here we go. So this is from the Times of Israel, Yossi Klein Halevi, the Jewish nightmare of Bernie versus Trump. There's Comrade Bernie. I'll just read this. Ask British Jews what advice they would offer to American Jews based on their experience fighting Corbynism. And the answer is unequivocal. Don't wait until it's almost too late to fight for your political home. Don't pretend it can't happen to you. They mean pay attention to how quickly a mainstream party with a long pro-Israel tradition and deep roots in the Jewish community can be transformed into a home for enemies of the Jewish people. Bernie Sanders is not Jeremy Corbyn, and the Democratic Party is not Labor. Sanders has repeatedly affirmed his support for Israel's right to exist, though he is far more equivocal about its right to defend that right. We all know about his time on a kibbutz. Oh, I didn't know that. Bernie was on a kibbutz. How about that? And the Democratic Party has an overwhelming majority of pro-Israel legislators. But more than any other leading politician, Sanders is responsible for mainstreaming the Corbynist wing of the Democratic Party. The party's anti-Zionists, like Linda Sarsour, have gathered around Sanders, and Sanders himself supported Corbyn, ignoring the fears of British Jews who overwhelmingly saw Corbyn as an anti-Semite. Corbyn has shown us how quickly the politics of the fringe can become mainstream. Under President Sanders, those still renegade voices within the Democratic Party would have intimate access to the White House. In his first months in office, President Trump emboldened the far-right fringe. President Sanders would do the same with the far left. By the way, Trump just used the far right and the alt-right to get elected. He's left them behind now. Completely left them behind. He's got spurned lovers like Mike Cernovich, who bitches about Trump every day on Twitter. Bernie is that Jew. Let's see, what do we have here? Okay. Sanders recently spoke movingly about the impact of the Holocaust on his sensitivity to racism and injustice. And yes, he hates anti-Semitism, right-wing anti-Semitism. The anti-Semitism in his own camp seems to leave him indifferent. So this is a weird thing. This is a totally weird thing. Like, I still can't wrap my head around this. And perhaps it's because I'm not Jewish, but I just see being able to criticize a country as being able to criticize a country, regardless of who is in power in that country. You want to criticize China, you want to criticize Russia, you want to criticize Grenada, you want to criticize Israel, you want to criticize Saudi Arabia. I don't understand this. But because Israel is primarily Jewish, you criticize the country and it's anti-Semitic. I don't get it. I don't believe it. And from a perspective of truth and free speech, I don't buy it. I'm sorry, I just don't buy it. Any country should be under the microscope of circumspection. I don't care what it is. It's like using this shield, using a kind of a belief system shield or historical shield in order to censure or prevent any kind of criticism. And I'm just not wired that way. And again, born and raised in America, well, I was born outside of America, raised in America for better or worse. All right, let me keep going here. Bernie is that Jew who has taken his people's suffering and offered it entirely outward in the service of other causes. After his stay on a kibbutz, Bernie the Jew, this guy clearly does not like Bernie Sanders. Bernie the Jew. There's Bernie the Jew, and then there's Bernie the commie, apparently. This is interesting. Seems to have gone AWOL. Did he stand with Israel in 1967, 1973, and 1975 when the UN labeled Zionism racism? Did his Holocaust-driven pain lead him to active involvement in the movement to free Soviet Jewry, the most important American Jewish political response to the Holocaust? And then there was a video clip of Sanders taken during his Soviet honeymoon in 1988, sitting bare-chested in the sauna and toasting Soviet officials. The astonishing scene portrays a Jew indifferent to his people's torment. Well, last time I checked, if you look at the Bolshevik Party and the Bolshevik Revolution, which originated in New York City, and you have somebody like Trotsky, who happened to be Jewish, and you have basically this inflamed kind of Trotskyite Jewish phalanx that goes in and flips Russia. It was part of the tradition. Sometimes these details get really confused and lost on other people, like drill down. But sometimes those details, though, are annoyances. Lev Bernstein, right? Lev Bronstein. That was Trotsky's real name. Lev Bronstein. Bernie is also uniquely an American story irony. The first serious Jewish candidate for president turns out to be a man-child who never left the 60s, who delights in the rhetoric of revolution and recklessly threatens to undo the American economy with it. American Power asked in a recent interview how many trillions his programs will cost. He effectively shrugged and said, "Who knows? No one knows. How should I know?" A Trump-Sanders contest would be a political nightmare for American Jewry. It would undermine whatever minimal consensus still holds the American Jewish community together. In that toxic atmosphere, pro-Sanders and pro-Trump Jews would each accuse the other of betraying Jewish values, and both would be right. Trump has delivered for Israel. Whatever Israel has wanted, Trump has been there. If you're an American Jew, there's got to be confusing. There's got to be a level of cognitive dissonance, especially if you don't like Trump. If you associate with kind of the neoliberal policies of the Democratic Party, which are kind of borderline socialist, right, already, and then you see Trump, going out of his way to make Israel great again, that's got to be cognitively dissonant. I mean, if that were me, I'd have a hard time. I would have a hard time reconciling that. It's kind of like, oh man, what are we doing here? It's like, I hate this guy, but he's doing all these things for Israel. I mean, that's just got to be a weird trip, right? That's that Sun-Uranus conjunction for Trump, which could be very polarizing. But let's leave no doubt, Trump has been the most pro-Israel president, I don't know, since Lyndon Johnson. All right, let's keep going here. Those Jews who passionately support Trump need to ask themselves whether their man is at least partly responsible for the threat of a Sanders presidency. The politics of rage from whatever source are never good for Jews. Inevitably, the ecstasy of the crowd blurs political lines. When all norms shatter, anything becomes possible. It's chaos. Chaos is a revolutionary strategy and tactic. A Trump-Sanders race would cut to the heart of American Jewish identity. It would reduce the two essential elements of contemporary Jewish identity, particularism and universalism, to farce. In that race, Trump would be the Jewish particularist, chastising universal-minded Jews for betraying Israel. And Sanders would be the tikkun olamist, drawing on Jewish history only to justify his dismissal of explicitly Jewish concerns. That is to be a mind fuck. It's to be a total mind fuck for Trump and Sanders to square off against one another. Now, Bloomberg is a whole different animal. Like, he could step in and he could represent, in a way, he could represent the American Jewish community in a way that Bernie Sanders can't. So they're banging the drum for Mike Bloomberg. And by the way, I think from a campaigning perspective, Bloomberg would pose significant issues for Trump. significant. Number one, he's a New Yorker. Number two, I think Bloomberg has been incredibly successful in business, maybe even more successful than Donald Trump. Bloomberg has never declared bankruptcy, and don't think he wouldn't call on that. He'll make his tax records public. Like, he could pose real problems for Donald Trump, although Trump's base will not be swayed, period of the story. But he poses problems. Trump won't be able to pick him off as easily. He might be able to go after him with some other stuff, but not as easily. All right, let me keep going here. Bernie Sanders is not an enemy of the Jewish people. He simply doesn't care enough about Jewish concerns to be considered a friend. President Sanders will be taking office at a time when the stakes could not possibly be higher for Israel. The current low-key Israeli-Iranian war is that interesting. Like, they're already in a war. Like, the current low-key Israeli-Iranian war. Did you understand that? Did you get the memo that Israel and Iran are at war? But it's low-key at this point. Going to keep it on the down low. Could transform at any moment into a full-scale, multi-front regional conflict. The IDF has repeatedly warned that in the next phase of this ongoing war, tens of thousands of missiles and rockets will fall on Israel. Israeli cities. Israel, according to the IDF, will respond with a massive invasion of southern Lebanon and the destruction of Lebanon's infrastructure. The Israeli counterattack could widen to include targets in Iran itself. In that entirely realistic scenario, whose side would President Bernie be on? It's an interesting question, but it is a dilemma now, isn't it? That theoretically they may have to face. I seriously doubt Bernie Sanders will get the Democratic nomination. I have my doubts that there'll even be an election. And I've had my doubts for a while. And some people have poo-pooed me a bit or listened to it. So, it's a bit extreme. But all the markers are there right now. Now we have the X factor of coronavirus floating around, and we don't know how coronavirus is going to impact this country. We know it's going to impact the supply chain coming from China. That's already happening. And that's something that you probably need to be aware of. And you probably need to get some goods that you may not be able to get. And they're really, some of them are really basic things, like things like for your dishwasher, detergent pods, which are made in China. They're made in China, these detergent pods. So, just look around and see what you need. Don't appear to be a hoarder, but get items that you're gonna, if they happen to run out, you should probably have a few on hand. This is the way it is, right? It's better to be prepared and not need anything than to need something and not be prepared. It's funny, I was listening to local conservative talk radio out of San Antonio yesterday, and they were actually talking about the coronavirus, because Lapland in San Antonio is where one of these quarantine bases is being set up right now. The guy who does the show is a guy by the name of Jack Riccardi. He's pretty good, actually, although I don't agree with him in anything. But let me tell you what Jack Riccardi said. He said that, what are you going to do? How are you going to deal with coronavirus? How are you going to deal with this? So the first thing you ought to do is you ought to be healthy. That is the first thing. You've got to be healthy. And then he said, I think we place too much trust in government, because there are some people who think that government will step in and solve the coronavirus. And he said, I think we place too much trust in government. And he used this as a call for people to take care of themselves. And that video with Elizabeth Warren, the shutting part was interesting. But let me play this video again. I want to play this again. I got another video to play too. This one will crack you up. Let me play this video again. And one of the things you want to notice here is you want to notice the physical condition of people in this diner. All right, here we go. Most, if not all, are borderline overweight. Borderline overweight. You look at this guy. I mean, I'm not here to body shame people. That's not the intent. But the majority of the people at this table are severely overweight. If you go back, and I've talked about this before, if you go back and you look at videos or films from the 1930s, 40s, 50s, even the 60s, people are not overweight. People are height, weight, proportional, and most trending towards thin. And it's the crappy food, the processed food, the copious amounts of sugar that are everywhere, the glyphosate, which has ripped our guts apart, so we can't digest things. We have leaky gut, and all that stuff has contributed to a nation of obesity, where people don't take care of themselves and they wind up going in and out of the hospital. And once you're in the hospital, you're in a deep cycle of dependence. And so this guy, Jack Riccardi, was actually advocating people get healthy. What a trip. Huh? Somebody's texting me on Facebook. What's happening? Oh, great. Thank you. Thank you. Let me show you another video here. This is interesting. This is a trip. This is a trip. This is one of those awkward moments where MSNBC decides that they're going to get the guy in the street. It's the guy in the street moment. Daily Caller. Let me see if I can plug this in here. Who's going to pull this guy over? He's in New Hampshire, and it's hilarious. Let's get to the video. Oh, come on. Where's the video? Did they remove the video? Oh, here it is. Here it is. Okay, here we go.
I don't see it as possible, but I want to talk to. We have a voter out here. Sir, you were watching, so you're going to be on television now. Can you tell us who you voted for? Donald John Trump. You voted for Donald John Trump. Yeah. Look at that. Bernie Sanders is not appealing to you?
The whole ideology would be destructive to the country. It's anti-growth. It's anti-family. It's anti-American. And as a Roman Catholic, it's anti-life.
Whoa! Better screen your man on the street a little bit better, MSNBC. That is not the message that I think you want to send. Real quick, a little update on the Corona stuff. We still have a bunch of cruise ships that are floating around, containers of contagion, the barges of illness floating around out there. I feel sorry for those people. It's just got to be kind of a weird hell being on a cruise ship and Corona confined. I've been doing some research on nicotine, and I think Emily and I are going to be doing a show on this. And you may want to look into nicotine and cytokine storms and how nicotine can actually be a very, very powerful agent when it comes to fending off cytokine storms. So you may want to look into that, nicotine. Okay, let me just go through some of your comments here. Let's see what's happening in Chatlandia, the best chat on the internet. What do we have here? We got a lot of good stuff going on in the chat room. A lot of healers in this chat room. You can pick up a lot of interesting information and insights from the healer. This is a chat room of basically nothing but healers, really. Let's see what we have here. Judge Judy is peddling Bloomberg. How old is Judge Judy? My God, is she another robot? Like Pete, Mayor Pete? Poop Shekels, that's funny. Let's see, what else we have here? Diana says, I pee sunshine. You do, actually. We all pee sunshine, don't we? There's a lot of scatological humor today in the chat. I'm proud of you guys. Let's see, what else do we have here? I wonder if they have sparkling water in the toilet. Where did this show go, man? It's conjecture in the extreme distraction status. Bernie will never be granted the nomination. No, of course not. But he'll blow the party up. He will blow the party up. And the thing you got to watch out for Bernie in this instance is, if you're a Democrat, the worst possible scenario would be Bernie Sanders as a third party candidate. Now listen, this is going to be Bernie Sanders' last run. Like, there will never be another time that Bernie Sanders will run for president. Like 4 years from now, he'll be too old. And there'll be some, like AOC is going to get to a point where she's going to be old enough to run for president, okay? And all the young commies are going to eclipse Bernie Sanders at some point. And his clock is ticking. Now, one of the things I brought up on Facebook last night was that about 3 months ago, Bernie Sanders had a heart condition and was hospitalized briefly. Just put that in the back of your head, because that thing could be the potential out for Bernie Sanders, because he knows that when he was bullied by Hillary and Wasserman Schultz and the DNC and lost his nomination last time. And that's just from the delegate perspective. Then he shows up at the convention with a freaking black eye. Like somebody had knocked his shit out. He went up to him and put him in his place. And he's back out there again. But remember the heart thing, because if there's an out for him to drop and they come to him and say, look, you cannot run for president. We're gonna broker this convention, and it's gonna be Mike Bloomberg, or we're gonna find something on you. But it'll be the heart thing. That'll be his out, possibly. So just file that away. But he's a disruptor. He's going to disrupt the process. And he should. He should. I don't care if it's a distraction. Let disrupt the process. I'm all about the disruption of this process, which has become a sham. It's become a total sham. I mean, going back to the elections, you can just go back and start picking off those elections. And the one election that I think that they actually didn't soil, they didn't need to, was Obama first run against John McCain. It was a slam dunk. They didn't need to rig those elections. That was a slam dunk. Are you kidding? Obama, John McCain, really? And then you throw in the chaos of the economy, and John McCain saying, well, I think we should suspend the election. Is that the fucking kind of president you want? No, I think we should suspend the election. It's such a crisis. But what he should have said was, if I'm elected president, this will never happen again. And I will make sure that who's ever responsible for this will pay the most stiff penalties, and I will not leave you, the American taxpayer and homeowner, out in the cold and in the lurch. You see, that's leadership. That's a leadership moment. I think we should suspend the election. This is such a crisis. That was it. It was over. Once that happened, it was over. He was done. And Obama kept his mouth shut. They didn't rig that election. Romney Obama, I bet they rigged that. That was easy. Of course, they rigged Kerry versus Bush, two skull and boners. That was rigged. They rigged Bush versus Gore, totally rigged. Even Trump, Hillary Clinton, that election was hanging in the balance. Hanging in the balance. There's a reason why that it took so long for them to finally call Trump a winner. It's because they were doing deals in the background. It's exactly what was happening. Because Hillary had won granted, there was a lot of fucking cheating going on there. She won the general election, didn't win the electoral. By the way, the state of Virginia has passed their gun laws and have decided that to circumvent the electoral college in the next election. Okay, so we have one state now that has basically said we're not going to play with the electoral college. For all intents and purposes, Virginia is seceding from the country. If you're not paying attention at home, they're seceding. It's on. This whole thing is on, and it's not really a civil war per se, but it is a series of microfractures that we're dealing with. In the meantime, how are you? How's your life? See, as the outer world begins to crack and fissure, the inner world is in a very different place, right? This is a time where there's that reality and it's objectified, and then there's your inner reality, which is a time for you to live with coherence and cohesion. This is a time for you to get it together and pull it together. It's all possible. It's all very possible. And not only is it possible, it's essential. Because if we're going to be moving through a time of cracks and fissures, then you're going to need to be as whole and together as you possibly can be so that you can be there for the people in your life. So do whatever it takes. If you have a habit that you got to get rid of, look at it, deal with it, exercise it. If you've got to instill some new habits, some new things that are going to be much more beneficial for your growth, do it. Okay, this is the time to get it done. Put it all together. It's a time for synthesis and integration. Because where else is it going to happen, number one? And there's going to be a point in time where there's going to be something, there's going to be an event, and we're going to be on the other side of that event. And whatever happens on the other side of that event will be very different than where we are now. And you may not have the ability to pull it all together in the same way. Whatever it is. And it could be very positive. I'm not saying that it'll be potentially negative. It could be very, very positive. But it won't have the same kind of relevance and high risk, high reward potential of where we are right now. Isn't that right, Jasper? Jasper agrees with me. Agrees with me. So do whatever it takes. Get it together, synthesize, integrate, become whole. Or at the very least, recognize that you are whole and put the pieces back together that you're missing. It's a journey worth taking. Because when you do that, then you unlock the logos inside of yourself, you have the logos live through you, and then guess what? Now we're really humming. And now we've got, what I would call the sort of the rightful version of the Aquarian age, where everybody's responsible for their own well-being, for their own happiness, for their own success, for their own sacred and divine relationship, with the logos. It's all there. It's all on you. And when you get a bunch of people that are taking responsibility for that, and you put them together, you got a really, really strong group of people. That's how it works. It is not outer imposed from to the inner structures. It's the inner structures that superimpose upon the outer structure. All right, let me get out of here. Let's see where you guys are at. Friggin' cigarettes. I can't stand the smoke. I can't stand that I smoke. That might be okay for you. I quit and vape, but not comfortable. I agree, Maury. It's a testimony. Maury should be a spokesperson for the tobacco industry. Like Maury, if I worked for RJ Reynolds, I'd hire you. I would hire you, Maury. I've never seen anybody smoke more than Maury, and I'm not. This is not a denigration because the guy's still around. He's super sharp, and he really contributes. I love Maury, and he smokes more cigarettes than Cancer Man from whatchamacallit, the X-Files. So Maury, if I worked for tobacco company, I'd make you one of my spokespeople. The demonization of tobacco is very interesting, very, very interesting. And I'm going to explore more of this relationship with nicotine and how nicotine can actually be an antidote to a cytokine storm, and which could be very, very helpful for people that are dealing with some kind of viral invasion. All right, I'm out of here. Use this, your head, to discern what's real, your heart to stay open what's possible. For everybody that's subscribed, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I'll be getting back to those of you who got to the $10 and $20 levels. I'll be sending out reports today. That's everybody who signed up. And I've already asked some of you for your birth data, and you provided it. So you're going to get a 365-day transit report, which is a pretty good deal. It's coming at you. And for those of you that like to support the show, like to support this content, you can do that. I'll leave a link here. on the description of the show. Just go to robertphoenix.com. There's some tiers here for you to plug into. Friday, I just want to remind you, it's going to be the return of Rock Castaldo, and we're going to be talking about practical mysticism. And then the following Friday, it will be the return of Regina Meredith, and the Regina, who's the outlaw Regina Meredith. Maybe we get her to wear a cowboy hat or something, because she's been expelled from Facebook and Twitter. I can't wait to hear about that. That'll be really interesting. Okay, use your head to discern what's real, your heart to say what's possible. I'm Robert Phoenix. Thanks again for being a part of today's show. And take good care of yourself.